I'm the man now. Nobody ever gave a handout. For the stretch, talking grams loud. Cut them off, get a handout. Broke talk, what's that about? Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
What's going on, everybody? You know who it is. It's Tay Wiz, of course, coming live and direct from the Man Cave. For those subscribers out there that is not subscribed to the YouTube channel, hit that bell. If you're subscribed to my Twitter page, hit that bird at TAE_WIGGS. And of course, the website is below. First and foremost, we're going to get right into it. Today's games kick off. You got the Milwaukee Bucks going up against the Boston Celtics. And this series is actually tied at 2-2. If these teams want to win, the Bucks got a couple of guys coming back from major injuries, Malcolm Brogdon and Matthew Dellavedova. And the Boston Celtics lost some key guys. We know they lost Gordon Hayward in the first game of the season. They know they lost Kyrie Irving due to injuries and Marcus Smart. So the X factor of these games, who will be that person that can step up for the Boston Celtics? I got Marcus Morris. Definitely could be a good addition to step up for those young guys as well. Even though these guys did play the playoffs last year, the Terry Rozier's and the Jaylen Browns. But to go along with someone else, to have a veteran presence as a Marcus Morris, to bring some of that grit and that grind to that team, that is definitely a huge key. He's one of my X factors who I can see getting it going. Terry Rozier is another X factor for the Boston Celtics. Even though they lost Kyrie Irving, they can still gain something from that. He's a nice two-way player. He can score and he can defend. So these are the things that the Boston Celtics need to do if they want to get the win over the Milwaukee Bucks. And like I said, this season series is tied 2-2. The Celtics is averaging 102.2 points per game in this series alone. In the regular season, folks, that is. Then I got the Milwaukee Bucks. Like I said, they got Malcolm Brogdon back and definitely Matthew Dellavedova. They get the scorer and they get the scrappy defensive player back, which is always key and definitely a great pickup going into the playoffs. I'm looking for their X factors. Their X factors to me would be Brandon Jennings. The reason I say this is an X factor for Brandon Jennings is because he can score and he can defend, but he's a speedy guard. He's honestly scrappy too. The reason I like that too because there's no Kyrie Irving. Yes, you got the rookie over there in Boston, Jason Tatum, who plays a 2 and a 3, the wingman. But this is his first year of the postseason. Brandon Jennings been there before. He played with the Milwaukee Bucks. And, he played with the Washington Wizards last year in the playoffs as well. But you looking at what this guy, Brandon Jennings, can bring to the table. He's definitely going to play on the ball defense. And he's especially hyper on that end of the floor. So that's definitely a great X factor. And Tony Snell. The reason I say Tony Snell, he has to be that guy who can also defend. Yes, if he can get you 10 points, that is great because Gannis can score, and the other guys can score on that team as well. But I'm looking for those two, Tony Snell and Brandon Jennings, to be a huge X factor for the Milwaukee Bucks, the young Milwaukee Bucks. Going through a lot of turmoil, what happened to Jason Kidd, who got fired early in the season. And this team, since he got fired, they fell off the course a little bit. They fell off. They were like a top 4, top 5 team in the league. But in their conference, they was a top 5 team in the conference. But since the new coach came in, they've been up and down, chemistry. But I feel like this would be huge. They got Jabari Parker back, which is always great. And like I said, in this season series, the Bucks average 101.2 points per game. And you ask me my predictions about this series, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I'm going to give this series to the Milwaukee Bucks in 6. Yes, I said the Milwaukee Bucks in 6. Don't go down to the 3 o'clock game. The Indiana Pacers taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Pacers is winning this series 3-1. X factors for both these teams will be, starting especially with the Indiana Pacers, X factor would be Lance Stevens. He like to blow on LeBron James' ear. He's going to irritate LeBron James till he can, to try to get under his skin, at least get him a technical foul. I think LeBron James is not going for that. It's just a different dynamic when Lance Stevens brings to the table. He is what you call like a playground player. He's going to get his teammates involved. He's a character, and I like Lance Stephenson. Some people that you talk to don't like his game, but I like his game. It's just a different type of style, and you see his name, Born Ready. He get the fans involved. So anytime you get the crowd involved, that's a good thing. He would be a huge X factor because he's not a high volume scorer, but he can pass that rock. If he get that ball in his hand and he can find different, he's a playmaker. So if he can find different people, get open and get them in their spots, that's lights out. Another person I picked to be an X factor is Domantas Sabonis, the bigs. The reason I picked the big for the Cavaliers because the Cavaliers had no answer the whole season for a big man. Tristan Thompson is undersized at that center position. You got Larry Nance is undersized at that position too, who will be guarding probably a Domantas Sabonis. The Cavaliers, and the reason I say that because you bring him off the bench and you still got Miles Turner at the center spot. So the Cavaliers gonna have their hands full come tonight during that game. So when you look at a Domantas Sabonis who can step out, can hit the 15-footer, he can hit a three-point area now and then. He played just like his father, but he's a little bit more agile. And he's way more quicker on his feet than his dad was. He played for them great Portland Trailblazers teams. X factors for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Jordan Clarkson. Can he stay hot? This is his first year in the postseason. Like Larry Nance Jr., this is his first year in the postseason. Can these young two studs stay hot? I feel like if these guys get it going early in the game, sky's the limit for the Cavaliers. But at the same time, Larry Nance Jr., he runs the floor good for a big man, and he's a finisher. What he has that Tristan Thompson don't have, he has a post move. He can hit the 15-footer. He's a great free throw shooter. Those three characteristics I named for Larry Nance Jr., Tristan Thompson do not have. He gets the ball on rebounds. He put the ball back down the floor and get the ball so let's swipe that. You got to keep the ball up high so the little people like myself won't come down and swipe. So those are the X factors I'm looking for the Cavaliers. Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance Jr. If those guys get it going, who knows? Who knows? And like I said, in this series, the Pacers average 108.7 points per game, and the Cleveland Cavaliers average 104. And with this series being 3-1, and the Pacers stole this series, if you ask me who's going to win this series, I'm going to say the Cavs in 5. Because if the Cavaliers win Game 1, Indiana would be in trouble because if the Cavs win Game 1, I guarantee you the Cavaliers won't lose Game 2 because there's a lot of X factors. LeBron James is going to set the tone early. I wouldn't be surprised if LeBron James will have a triple-double in that game, go for a quick 35, 12, and 8. 35, 12, and 10, a quick triple-double. So I'm looking at those type of things. Then I'm going to hit down to that 8 o'clock game, the Utah Jazz and the OKC Thunder. Rookie of the Year candidate. Probably my Rookie of the Year. If I had the chance to be on TV and vote, my vote would go towards Donovan Mitchell because he plays on the West Coast compared to Ben Simmons playing the East Coast. The reason I say the West Coast, in season series games, you get to see Westbrook 4 times, you get to see CP 4 times, Steph Curry 4 times. You got to name James Harden, all these guys. Jeff T, you got to see all these point guards at least 4 times a season. That's why he's not my MVP candidate, but you can call it MVP, Rookie of the Year, same thing, but he's my Rookie of the Year right here. Just because he brings that dynamic factor to the game. Like I said, OKC is winning this season series 3-1. And OKC averaging 99.7 points per game in this series. So when I'm looking at what the Utah Jazz is averaging in this series, Utah Jazz is only averaging about 98 points per game in this series. And my X factor would be Patrick Patterson. Played in the playoffs, hit some big time shots for the Raptors and stuff like that. But the reason I chose him, not just because of the big shots, Patrick Patterson plays defense. Can he bring a defensive presence into the playoffs to help to get the OKC Thunder over the Utah Jazz? Another X factor, picking Jeremy Grant. Long, athletic. He's not your typical scorer, but if he could just rebound and defend, everything else will fall in place for the OKC Thunder with those two guys are my X factors. Definitely another X factor for the Utah Jazz. Jay Crowder. I know it wasn't a good fit in Cleveland. He is a system guy. You can see what he did when he played for the Boston Celtics. He averaged 17 points with the Celtics. He comes to the Cavaliers team. He was only averaging 8. So he go to Utah. He's averaging about 14. So that you know he is a system guy. So if you got Jay Crowder going, playing defense and hitting open shots and getting to the hole, playing muscle basketball, that would be a great win for them as well. The other guy I'm going to pick is Alec Burks. Been with this Utah team now for about 5 or 6 seasons. When will he step out that shell and take over, coming off the bench? Now, if you can get him scoring 15 to 16 points per game in this playoffs, because they have no Joe Johnson to lean on. There's no Barbosa to lean on for these guys. There's no Gordon Hayward. That team is dismantled. So, can these two guys pick the pieces up and lead this team into a playoff victory? Because right now, I'm going to go with in this playoff match series, I won't be surprised if the OKC Thunder sweep the Utah Jazz 4-0. I just think that the OKC Thunder will come out hot, guns blazing, and going to end it quick. The 10:30 game, the Minnesota Timberwolves hasn't made the playoffs since 2004. I was a senior in high school, and Kevin Garnett is one of my all-time favorite players. He was the MVP of that year of the league. And the Houston Rockets. The Houston Rockets is averaging 122.7 points per game in this series. Wow. The T-Wolves is averaging 107 points per game. And the Rockets won this series 4-0 in the regular season. It's the playoffs. I know Tibbs going to have them ready. But the Houston Rockets got so much ammo and firepower. And you ask me who I got winning this series, I'm going to pick the Rockets to win this easy too in the first round, winning 4-0. So I picked two games, 2 series in the first round is going to go 4-0 today. Thunder and Rockets going to sweep both their teams. And the X factors for these guys right here, starting with the Timberwolves, will be Derrick Rose and Jamal Crawford. Derrick Rose, once upon a time, was an MVP of this league. He was considered one of the elite talents in this league. Due to some of the injuries that happened in his career, you still can't count Derrick Rose out. But at the same time, when he fall down to the ground, you still got to take a deep breath and hope everything is okay. If you can get a little bit of that Chicago Bulls D Rose, maybe a 2010 or 11 Derrick Rose, this could be an interesting series. If Jamal Crawford can stay hot, hit big shots when they need him at the most point in time, this can be very, very interesting. And the reason I say this is because Derrick Rose played under Thibodeau. He knows the Thibodeau method of playoffs. Of course, Taj Gibson played under him. He knows it. Jimmy Butler knows it. They know what it takes to try to win a playoff series. These guys have been in playoff series against some elite players in the Eastern Conference. So if they can bring some of that swagger to the locker room for the playoffs, sky's the limit for these guys. But I just don't see it happening right now because the X factor for the Houston Rockets is huge. You got Nene. All Nene can do is give you 8 points and grab about 10 or 12 rebounds and get you a block here and there in the steal. They crazy. And Joe Johnson lived for the playoffs. And once upon a time, I used to call him Mr. Steal Your Check. But right now, ISO Joe, if he get on no wings from the 3-point line at top of the key straight on, it's lights out. Lights out because everybody on the Houston Rockets team can hit threes from James Harden and CP3. We can keep going. Joe Johnson, Gerald Green, Eric Gordon, Ryan Anderson. They have a plethora of guys that can hit shots at any time. But if they go cold, it can be a problem for themselves. You live by the 3, you die by the 3. Like I said, Joe Johnson is a huge X factor who played in big time games, took some clutch shots in his playoff career and his NBA career in the regular season. So I'm taking the Rockets to sweep these guys 4-0 easily. Y'all know how I do it. I'm Tay Wiz reporting live for the Man Cave. Follow me on my Twitter and my YouTube. You can hit that bird and that bell at TAE_WIGGS. Peace.